Okay, I am Deb Cardiser and wanted to welcome you to our webinar today, which is preparing your teens, your young adults, and your kids in general for a financially successful life and what does that involve. And I'm joined here today with Joey Belisante, and here at 12 Points, we are passionate about educating our clients, their families, their children, and this is a really hot topic that people are very interested in. So we want to make sure that we have a chance to have you ask questions. So within the chat box, please type in your questions and we'll work them in or we'll get to them at the end. And what we wanted you to know today is that we're going to cover 5 segments. First is how financially prepared are young adults right now? And I'm representing the parent perspective, and Joey will handle the kid perspective. We're going to talk about where young adults get into trouble. When should parents help, and when should they let kids fail? How do we set them up for independence? And how to build wealth early and launch successfully. So those are the 5 general topics that we have. And then by way of introduction, I am here at 12 Points. I help women turn wealth into impact for their families and their businesses and themselves, obviously. And as a result of the work that we do together, the people I work with end up living bigger lives than what they would have imagined for themselves. So I'm joined here by Joey, and I think that his background is particularly compelling for our webinar. So Joey, why don't you give us a chance to tell us who you are and what you do here at 12 Points?
Of course. Thank you, Deb. At 12 Points, I work primarily on the wealth management and the business advising teams. And also, when I was an intern at 12 Points back in 2023, I was able to start up 12 Points Academy, which is our nonprofit focused on educating mainly college and high school students financially, professionally, and personally, really preparing them for success in the real world. And we've been able to really have a lot of success with that on college campuses, high schools, elementary schools, having a far reach over the last few years or so. And to Deb's point, I graduated college, a little over a year ago, last May. So I've been in the real world for a little bit now, having interned at 12 Points for a few summers and now joined full time. So I like to think I have some good perspective on what young people are facing today financially. And also, I think, Deb, we're going to cover a little bit about the professional side as well of what some of these kids are facing entering the workforce. So, but yeah, looking forward to it.
Great. Thanks, Joy. I think it's really important before we set out to just talk about financial education in general. And as parents, we are the financial educators for our kids. We don't see it that way. And if I can help even a couple of people on the webinar today to understand that this is our job as parents to help them and to prepare them. There is no financial literacy being taught in schools. Even if it did get taught in schools, it wouldn't be taught your way. So think of this as another thing that you get to do for your kids. And I'd love to start out talking about, Joey, what are you seeing with financial preparedness for the kids you work with in college and your peers, the young adults that you're working with? Tell us what you're seeing and what some of the issues are.
Definitely. So really the biggest thing that I've seen is that kids aren't introduced to financial education, financial topics early on. It's not really built into the school systems. High schools really don't introduce it. It's become increasingly built into the curriculums, but still not to the degree that I think we should have. Colleges really don't touch upon it, and that leads to students graduating both high school and college really without confidence or knowledge or resources really surrounding their finances. And I think it's so important because your finances really impact every aspect of your life moving forward that we should have some knowledge regarding that. So I see that a lot. We aren't introduced to it early on, which is probably the most important time to be introduced to it early on. And that leads to a lot of different results. And I think we'll get into that a little bit too, Deb, some of the outcomes from the lack of that education. Um, I know a lot to get into with how that might lead into especially with college age men, sports betting is huge right now. That's a definite difficulty that people are facing. Um, but really, just overall, the lack of information, a lack of knowledge regarding how values are incorporated into how we spend and handle money, um, how we should save our money early on, how to begin investing, and credit cards, and we can get all into that. But just the lack of knowledge overall at an early age, lack of starting these conversations at an early age, and how it shows.
I think what's important from the parental perspective to understand is that, and people understand this, but financial maturity develops, excuse me, through experience. So when you start out with your kids and you're working with allowance, teach them and talk to them about what you're doing, about why they're getting an allowance, what it's for, what it's not for. So start there. And then as you go along, it's going to become more. They're going to start driving and they have to pay for gas. And then where's that coming from? And how are you providing for those things? So setting some parameters, having those conversations is really critical. And thinking about your role as the parent and as the financial educator in all of this, we're shifting from being the provider, from buying them everything that they need, to becoming the teacher. And, as they're teenagers and things like that, in high school, you're teaching them, you're giving them lessons along the way. Talk to them, talk to them, talk to them. Walk through the grocery store and talk to them. Talk to them about how you're evaluating opportunities to go on vacation and why you picked the place you picked. Talk to them about all those things. The more they hear and normalize conversations about money, the better off they're going to be. My family came from the world of it's impolite to talk about money. So we didn't get a lot of this when I was growing up. So ironic that this is my chosen field, but truly the more that you can talk to your kids about money and how you're saving and what you're putting aside and how you have been saving for college, what kind of contribution you can make, let them know all those things. It's going to matter. The more you can normalize money conversations, the more comfortable they'll be coming to you for questions. And, to the extent that you're willing to do it, understanding your own mistakes that you made early on. I mean, when I was in my 20s, I had friends who blew all their money on clothing and a beautiful summer wardrobe, and they ran up all this credit card debt, and then their parents bailed them out, and they then spent that money too. So it's just, you can see all these mistakes, talk to your kids about them. The more they hear about it and they hear these cautionary tales, the more it's going to help provide insight and perspective for them. And then, talk to them about your decisions, the trade-offs you have in your life. 99.99% of us can't afford everything. So how do you make those decisions? How do you come about the decisions that you make and the expenditures that you're willing to make and the ones that you're not willing to make, and talk to them about why? Well, we can afford to buy X, Y, or Z, but that's not really how I like to spend my money. It doesn't tie into my values and what I find important in my world. And we're not going for financial perfection. We're not trying to make them perfect with money. We're really trying to build financial confidence and competence. So,
Deb, you
Joe,
touched on something that I think is important. How do we shift from parents as well, from your perspective, how do you shift from being the provider of your children, of your kids, from the world, enter that mindset, provide
you're breaking up, Joey, and I can't hear you. So I'm going to interpret what you're saying and hope we can fix this. How do you shift from being the provider to becoming the teacher and eventually the coach and eventually the resource? So it's a transition. And the important thing is, as your kids are going along, they're becoming more competent and confident with various things. You're teaching them about work for value. If you've got an allowance that they get every week or every month, talk to them about what they're getting and why they're getting it and what they need to do for it. And then as opportunities come up, bring them in on ways they can make money. Kids always want more money, right? If you're not willing to give it to them, have them mow the lawn, have them weed the garden for you, have them do things for you, not for themselves, not picking up their room, but do things for you that you can pay them for and they can understand the value of their work and what they get for it, and let them negotiate too. So the more that you can start doing those things and then pulling back with the allowance, go from weekly to monthly, let them run out of it, those kinds of things. The more that you can have lessons built into all this, the better off they're going to be. And starting to let go of the reins a little bit and let them control what's happening. You want to move from the driver of the car to the guardrails that keep the car from going off the edge and letting them drive. So hard to do along the way, but definitely room for that. Joey, talk and let me make sure I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good. You're good. So
Oh,
let's
good.
talk about where among your peers, among, your high school classmates, and what you're seeing now as a young adult, where do you see kids getting into trouble? What are some of the problems that they're having and the mistakes that they're making?
A couple of different areas. I think more recently, and more so because unfortunately it's more popular with the male demographic. Sports betting has really became uh, really big on college campuses, even high school. And last year I was even meeting with some middle schoolers, teaching them, and they even were involved in sports betting, which really opened my eyes to kind of how widespread this is and how damaging it really can be. And a lot of the time, parents have no idea that their kids are this involved with sports betting. Sometimes to their real detriment. I've seen it where some of my friends unfortunately get into debt, and it goes downhill. It keeps going downhill from there, and it's just wasted money, honestly. So it's sports betting has really infiltrated our demographic, and I don't really see any good things coming out of that. And it's in your face 24/7 with commercials, with ads, really everywhere. If you pop on, NFL Sunday, there's about 200 ads about different sports books and stuff like that, and it's really, really, really. I just see bad news with that. So that's one area of difficulty. Another one is starting to prepare early, and I kind of mentioned this beforehand too, but we we don't have the mindset of sacrificing now, so we don't have to sacrifice in the future, so we can benefit in the future. And really, what that instead of sacrifice, because sacrifice is kind of a harsh term, but save. That's really what it is. It's saving now, so we don't have to sacrifice in the future, or so we can really benefit ourselves in the future. And within that conversation also comes the topic of the time value of money. So starting now, we have time on your side as a young person, and also you don't most likely, in college and right out of school, you probably don't have too many expenses. You have the ability to kind of stash away money now in the present, so it'll pay off in the future with compound interest or compounding returns if you're in the market as well. And a lot of kids aren't introduced to that topic either. So introducing that to them, that's really what we try to do at 12 Points Academy. One of the first things that we teach our members is this concept of saving early, save early. Time is on our side as young people. And I've been seeing some very encouraging signs as with that, with kids starting to dip their toe into investing, get into investing early on, but unfortunately, they're probably not too diversified. They see all the flashy NVIDIA, Apple, Amazon, Tesla, but just getting started early, saving, investing, so you can take advantage of the time. I say those are probably the two largest things. But as a parent, Deb, what do you see from the parent's point of view?
Well, I think having I have a son who's your age and I have a daughter who's 18. So I see a lot, and the boy girl is also there's big differences there as well. I think it's really important to teach them about needs versus wants. And we're bombarded, and again, we can't afford everything that we'd love to have. And so teaching them the discipline of saying no and don't give in to them as a parent. Don't buy what they want. Let them feel that void. It's okay. It doesn't hurt. It's not a big deal. I think it's also really important to teach them about there's a difference between affordable spending and available cash or available money. So with credit cards, there's money available to you that is not in keeping with affordable spending. They're two wildly different things. So teaching your kids about credit cards, how they work, and it's basic. Understanding the interest rates. I mean, the average credit card today, the rates are somewhere between excuse me, 19.5% and almost 24%. And that's enormous. So when you're evaluating, should I put this on my credit card? It's really, are you willing to pay 24% more for that item? I don't think so. So thinking about it in those terms, understanding the behavior involved and the responsibility involved in having a credit card and paying it off and keeping it at zero, you really want to make sure that you're establishing your credit but not building debt. So that's really important. And then teaching them about take home pay versus salary, going through pay stubs and really letting your young adults, and if they're working during the summer, pick it up, show it to them, let them see what's being taken out for taxes, let them understand the difference. Um, I think the other thing that I watched, I had a shared account with my son in college, and DoorDash and Grubhub, are you kidding me? There's free food available at the dining hall that we've already paid for. So it's helping them understand that where are you spending your money? What kind of values involved? Does it really, spending time with your friends is what's paramount to you? Is ordering DoorDash equivalent to that? Ask it as a question. Don't influence them with your judgment. Try and keep judgment out of this. It'll help them more. And then looking at habits, my 17-year-old, 18-year-old the other day, she's a camp counselor. She didn't have breakfast ready. So she went to Dunkin'. And then 3 days in a row, she's going to Dunkin'. So we had that conversation. You're building a habit. It can be an expensive habit. Is that what you want to do? So just identifying these things is important.
I think that's a great point, Devin. From the values perspective, not having those values, because this is really what our financial education is based off of, the 12 Points Academy, is the values-based education, values and goals. So if we're not grounded in our values, we can really fall prey to any short-term temptation or short-term gratification. That's been a popular word, especially with social media and the 10 to 15-second videos, that short-term gratification, satisfaction. I think that also comes into play with how we spend our money as well. Like I would consider the Grubhub, and I've seen people go off the rails with Grubhub spending in college. It's ridiculous for a few different reasons. I think, and we talked about this earlier, Deb, some people have the means to be able to afford Grubhub every day, all day. And, it's true. Grubhub probably tastes better. Whatever you order on Grubhub probably tastes better than what's served in the dining hall, unless you go to UMass Amherst. But and then you follow the crowd, right? You follow what your friends are doing. You kind of turn on autopilot. You don't even consider the financial outcome or ramifications of it until you look at your bank account maybe the next month. You're like, oh crap, I got $2 to my name. But I think when you're rooted in your values, you're grounded in what's truly important, like you mentioned, and you're able to make those decisions a lot easier, and really see the trade-off, like you mentioned. Why don't I just go to the dining hall and I could spend my money in something that's more important to me? But also, I think shifting the mindset to the long-term benefit, the long-term satisfaction or gratification as well, and seeing how we can, by saving or sacrificing in the present, maybe we don't buy Grubhub today or tomorrow, right? We're actually putting ourselves in a better position down the road if we're able to put the money that we have in the present to better use, whether that be saving, investing, or even just putting it more towards things that are important to us, like family
Yeah,
experiences or anything like that.
yeah, I think it's important for parents to prepare their kids for all of that, what you were just talking about, understanding that they're going to be with people of different demographics and they're probably going to be exposed to people that they haven't been exposed to thus far, and understanding that people have different resources and different levels of being able to spend discretionarily, and prepare them for that. Prepare them for what it feels like to say no. Show them how you do it. And the other thing that I think is really important over all this is just having the conversations with them, being able to check in on them. I gave my son an allowance in college, and rookie parent mistake number one was that I let him run out of money. And I thought, oh no, I'm probably not giving him enough. So I'd give him a little bit more, and then I'd watch the expenditures, and it's more Grubhub. And I thought, okay, wait a minute, this back it up. I can't be giving him more because what he's going to do with it is spend it on Grubhub. And the way he spends my money is very different from the way he spends his own money. And that's another important parental lesson, is that if you make money available, they will spend it. And it's not that they're bad people. It's not that they have bad values or anything else, but you're giving them free money. And let's face it, if someone gives you free money, you're going to take it. So understanding that and putting the limits in place, and again, switching the allowance from weekly or however you're doing it now, or any kind of financial support, to doing it monthly, let them feel it to run out. It's a great lesson. It's one of the best. One of the best.
So
So let's talk
kind of going
about
off of that, oh,
go
can I just mention one more thing, Deb? Kind of going off of that, one of the really the main piece of advice that I give college or high school students entering college is when we're talking about, what our goals are for the next year. Where would I want to go to school? Can I afford to live at school, live at home, and just talking about those type of things. I always mention look at getting a job over the school year or during the school year so you can use that money as your discretionary weekly spending fund money. And then all the money you save or all the money that you earn during the summer, you save. You try not to touch it. For most schools, they're giving away jobs like can whether working in the gym, the library, athletic department. I worked in the athletic department at Bryant, sweeping the floors between basketball games, shagging balls at soccer and baseball games. Very easy to pick your own hours and very flexible, and it gives you that kind of the money you can go and have fun with during the week. So for any students on the call or for any parents who I want to mention that to their kids, I think that's my main piece of advice for kids going into college.
yeah. And then as a parent, letting them know what you're going to help with and what you're not going to help with, and what that money means. We'll get to that in a minute. But looking at this from your own perspective, we want to talk about when parents should help and when they should let kids fail. What were some of the helpful things that you did in college, Joey? What were some of the things that you've seen other parents do with kids your age, and what involvement was helpful and what wasn't? Can you hear me? I don't think you can hear me. I can't hear you. All right. So I'm going to do my piece first, and then I'm going to let you do your piece once we sort out your situation there. So in terms of helping and allowing them to fail, I think think of yourself as a resource, not a rescuer. And one of the things that I've seen, so I've worked with families through multi-generational wealth transfers, and some of them are on their fourth generation of wealth transfer. And I've really seen some parents mess up their kids by teaching them to have their hands out all the time for money. And it's not hard to get to this point. It's constantly rescuing, constantly bailing your kid out, and constantly giving them money. You're teaching them and reinforcing with them to ask for money. And I don't think that's what most parents want to do. Um, so allowing for small recoverable mistakes is really important. Let your kids run out of money. Let them feel what it feels like to run up their credit card debt and not be able to pay it. Um, Let them sit in that for a while before you come in and rescue. And when you do rescue them, make it a loan. Make sure that they're paying you each month or each week or whatever based on what they're earning, but make them pay you back. That's really important. I think letting them see that there's consequences to the mistakes they make is really important. And when they are, try to distinguish between irresponsibility with money and just simply the things that don't fall in your line of judgment. So what we want to do with our kids is not to judge how they're spending the money, but to talk about the behavior behind what they're doing and really teaching them the behaviors, the habits, the consistency is really important. So whether it's paying your bills on time, whether it's making sure that you check your bank balance every few days and look at the activity. It's teaching them those basic things that they do every day. Teach them how to pull a credit report. Teach them how to lock their credit. Everybody should have locked credit unless you're applying for a loan. And if you need more resources on any of this, please let us know. We have plenty of resources there. And then make sure that they are understanding that you're here to help them and you're here as a resource. And when you leave judgment out of it, they're much more likely to come back to you and ask questions instead of saying, oh gosh, my mom would never agree to spend money on this. She would hate this. And then asking questions rather than dictating solutions. This isn't yours to control anymore. And whether you want to realize it or not, you're not in the driver's seat. They are. They have the control, they have the money, they're making the decisions on it, and you're the bystander. So when you can behave accordingly, it will help them and help your relationship too, rather than driving them away. And then you're meant to be financially supportive, encouraging independence, not preventing it. And you really want to talk about what you're willing to help with, what you're not willing to help with. If you're giving them money, what's it for? What are you not going to do for them? Let them be really clear about that and let them know in advance so that they're not crying to you about money and you're saying, oh, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. Make sure it's upfront. Make sure you have sort of just verbal conversations about all of this. So, Joey, I'm guessing you're back there and you can hear now. So, let's talk about where parents are helpful based on your own experience. Where did your parents help you, and where have you seen parents being controlling and sort of more manipulative than helpful?
Great question. I think, especially to what you're just mentioning, Deb, my parents let me really fail a lot. I think they weren't really there to bail me out much. They kind of said I was not on my own, but they made me, they let me know that, if you want the new pair of shoes, or if you want, to go out to Chipotle or go hang out with your friends or anything like that. Really starting young, kind of maybe before high school, even like as soon as I was able to work, I'll put it that way. As soon as I was able to get a job, I think at 14 and a half or 15 years old, all that extra stuff was on me. And that really, I guess, kind of shaped my financial journey, or really who I am today as well. So kind of stressing financial independence early on, and showing the value of your own dollar, I think too, with, it's funny how you mentioned, Deb, I think it was your son, you said, spends your money differently than he spends his money. So the earlier on that I guess I was able to have my own money to spend and have to work for it. Back then I think the minimum wage was like $11 or something like that in Massachusetts. It was a lot of work. And also I think to that as well, you see how much taxes get taken out of your paycheck for the first time. So that was a wake up call too. Um, but I think that was very helpful, really allowing me to learn the value of work and the value of a dollar early on. So that really shaped how I spent my money early on, and really carrying it into today.
Yeah, so let's talk about setting kids up for independence. Um, Again, clearly defining what you're supporting and what you're helping and what you're not, what you won't pay for, let them know that. Make sure, especially with the college conversation, make sure the kids know, start if you haven't started yet, start there and talk about what you have saved, what's available, the different schools that are out there, and their ability to get some scholarship money or some merit money of some kind. Talk about all of that so that they can start seeing what the landscape is and they can participate in it. Just having them go out to our colleges and pick the one they like the best isn't necessarily the best way to approach that. Um, I have my kids pay their own tuition, not earn the money for it, but take the money out of the account and actually make the transfers. And it sounds a little silly, but when they realized how much a semester of school, room and board cost, it's a lot. And it was sobering for them rather than just going out to school and, I know my stuff's paid for, thanks, mom and dad. It's really the discipline of doing it on time. If it wasn't paid on time, they would have to pay the late fees. So that only happened once, but it's those little lessons. It's understanding responsibility and consequences. I think that's really important. And then understanding, we talked about this before, understanding paychecks, understanding your taxes that are coming out, employer benefits that are available to them. They may only be working a summer job, but they can understand their paycheck, their taxes that are coming out, what's left, what's available to them, and then teaching them regular savings habits. So my daughter turned 18. We opened a Roth IRA account for her. She's not making a huge amount of money, so we're doing a little match. It's not a significant amount, but we're also showing her the charts that you can find online, and everybody should show this to their kids. If you want the link, let me know. But it's a chart that shows saving as a teenager and starting to save when you're 18, 19, 20 versus starting when you're 35. And the fact that the 35-year-old is never going to catch up and the 18, 19-year-old can stop saving and they'll end up with significantly more money just because of the power of compounding. So show them these things. Teach them with each paycheck they've got to make a savings contribution to themselves and set those up to go automatically. That makes a big difference. Those habits automated makes it a no-brainer. You sort of set it and forget it. Teaching them about lifestyle creep and what it means when you start making more money. Teach them the discipline of putting any bonus aside, putting any pay raise aside. So when they can start to think about those things in advance rather than, woo, I have more money to spend, it's okay. Of this more money that I have, that I'm receiving every month, what am I doing with it? How am I deploying it? And then starting to get them thinking about values and goals. That's going to go a long way to help them start thinking about the process of all this. So they build the habits and then they start thinking about the process and how they want to set up their lives and enjoy the money that they are making. So Joey, from your perspective, what should kids understand before they go to college and how should parents prepare them for that?
One that jumps to mind, especially it's very relevant in today's world where tuition prices are skyrocketing and students are taking out student loans in the tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like what can you afford? And I think that's a discussion for both the parent and the student, because the student is going to, have to pay on the back end with the student loans potentially, and also the parent, let's say, may have to even put off retirement at some point. I've read articles about how parents are putting off saving for retirement to pay for their children's education. So I think that's a conversation that involves both parents and the children. What can you afford for school? Then also, as well, what are you, as the student, what are you going into school with for savings as well? Am I going to be able to get a work study or a job during the school year? A lot of the time on the applications, or before you even get to campus, you're able to have a job lined up through a work study. And sometimes with certain financial aid or scholarships, that's required as well. So I think it's probably the best thing for you can do is to get have some sort of work during the school year, get some income. Those two things really stick out. And I would say just think about, back to your point, Deb, about kind of the values and the lifestyle creep, and just think about like what do I really want my life to look like down the line, and just kind of, and hopefully the parents can kind of pop some of these things into their mind, to get them thinking about some of these things with, do you really need Grubhub every day, or, X, Y, and Z spending wise, because it kind of just shows up, when you don't have your parents by your side anymore. You're on your own, independent at school. You don't have your parent looking over your shoulder anymore, telling you no to this, no to that. So it makes it a lot easier if you kind of have, I guess, introduce those conversations beforehand. You know what to expect when you're actually in that situation.
Yeah, and I think a point that we talked about earlier was when parents give kids a credit card for an emergency, define what an emergency is, because it's not to be used, well, in my house, it's not to be used when they run out of money. It's to be used if they're stranded on their flight home and it's snowing and they need a hotel room. Excuse me. So talking about what an emergency is and what the credit card is supposed to be used for is really important. And the other point that you mentioned, Joey, earlier, and I counsel parents on this all the time, is to save, and this goes for everybody, save for yourself first. So save for your retirement before you save for college, and continue to save for your retirement when your kids are in college. And they make loans for college educations. They do not make loans for retirement. So take care of yourself first. And every kid needs to learn that lesson. Take care of yourself first. Don't be the guy who goes and puts down his credit card to buy the first round at a bar. You don't want to be doing that. And then always happens to me. Sorry. Um, and then making sure that you're checking in with them on all of these things. So you're not just sending them off to school, you're checking in with them, you're having conversations. And if you have one of those parent accounts where you can peek into their bank account, that's a great thing too. But teach them to also look for those things. Look for fraud. That's another thing that they should be aware of. My son got a notice the other night for a spot hero, and it was a few dollars. And he thought, oh, well, I gave my cousin my card for that, and maybe she still has it. Maybe it's that. If you see something coming across your account, stop it right away, get the account closed, do what needs to be done, teach them what needs to be done when you find that. So then the next thing that happened is within 10 minutes, he had a $550 charge from Walmart. They could have prevented. Now he's going to go back through the fraud and get that taken care of, but it's going to take a while. So teach them how to handle all of these things. All the things that you know how to do, they need to be taught because they don't know. They can Google it, but it's much easier if you teach them. So let's talk in our next few minutes here about the life after college and starting to create your own life now. And you are starting to build wealth. You want to build your wealth early and consistently. And how do you launch successfully from that perspective? Joey, what advice do you have for the kids who are just getting out of school, for the mistakes that you've seen your friends make? Things like that. How can we help our kids?
So let's say you have graduated from school, you're in the real world, you have a job. Hopefully that job offers some sort of retirement plan, maybe 401k. Take advantage of the employer match if you have an employer match. That's the minimum. It's free money being left on the table if you don't take advantage of that. So I would say that's a big one that I see people missing out on. Also, if you can do more than the employer match, do it. Start saving early. Time is on our side. We'll take advantage of the long run of the market, compound interest, compound returns. Let's see what else here. Um,
You talked earlier about retirement feeling irrelevant when you're 22 years old. Talk about
yeah.
that for a minute, and then talk about what do you think can motivate your peers to save?
So it does feel like retirement is off in the distant future when you're 21, 22, 23, 24. Um, but I think it's probably the best time to start to begin saving, and you can stash away. I would hope a significant amount of money while you don't have really limited expenses, no family, no kids. I would much rather do that now than when I'm in my 30s or 40s when I hopefully have a family, kids, house, mortgage, got to pay for, AU baseball or basketball, right? I would much rather start saving now, sacrificing now, rather than down the line. And I really think just introducing that to kids and, my age is a good way to get them engaged with it and kind of, I don't want to, if you want to say convince them, but convince them to start doing it because I would imagine they don't even really think of that. That's never really been put in front of them before. It was never really put in front of me until I've gotten here and got to see the unfortunate ramifications, results of putting off for retirement or saving down the line. And even before retirement, Deb, what about for like a down payment for a home, right? Even just your first big purchase, you can start early, prepare yourself through putting money aside, whether you in just your high yield savings account or a CD is a great vehicle for that as well. A big thing with my generation, I don't know how, I don't know why, I don't know the rhyme or reason, but uh, multi-family investment properties, rental homes. It's a I keep hearing it from students. They're saving up to purchase a multi-family home that they can live on one side or they can live on the top floor and they can rent out the other side, and that's going to pay for the mortgage and then blah 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 down the line. So it's been cool to see how kids are actually thinking down the line with some of this stuff. But I would say probably the majority of them haven't even thought about this. This hasn't even crossed their mind, and they're spending everything that comes in, unfortunately. And also kind of unfortunately, living beyond their means. I've seen this as well, where kids who are making not too much money are living luxurious lives when they should probably. A professional, an adult told me a couple of years ago, he came in for a panel. It's like living like you're broke out of college it was the best thing for me. He said he learned so many lessons, and he was able to save. And he said, "What do you got? You don't really have too much to spend, or you have no expenses, and really have to spend too much money." And I was able to save up, and then able to live within my means from there on, and live beyond my means afterwards. When I was actually able to. So, but I don't know if any of that makes sense to you, Deb, or if
Yeah,
you've even thought about that.
I think it's really important for parents to realize that the financial pressures facing your generation are very different than the parent grew up with. It is a different mindset. It's a different set of challenges and lifestyle opportunities that you have that we did not have. And I think the parents need to understand a component of that, but they also need to teach their kids that, you know what, there is a thing about getting out of college and having your first job and eating ramen noodles because that's not what you can afford. I think a lot of kids expect to take on their parents' lifestyle, maybe a rung or two below it, but that's not reasonable either. It's not reasonable to expect that you can do the same things that you did growing up. You can't afford those vacations. You can't afford to eat in those restaurants. It's very different. And that kind of understanding about what's possible, what you're going to experience, is an important thing for parents to prepare their kids for. You can't live like this. It's nice that you grew up this way, but it's not how you're going to start out. So letting them see and understand that, and then teaching them ways to save both ways to save and ways to not spend because they're two different things. So the saving again is the automatic piece. It's part of what you take out of every single paycheck. It should be automatic behavior. And you can teach kids as young as 5 how to save money. So you give them little jars and you put some of their allowance into the save jar and some of it into the spend jar. And little kids can learn this. So teenagers can definitely learn this. And then teaching them not to spend, teaching them, again, I said this before, well, I'm not going to spend my money on that because that's not really valuable to me. I don't really care that much about whatever that thing is or whatever that experience is. And it doesn't mean that much to me. Understanding those things and tying it back to values, huge, huge, huge. And really talking to kids And asking them questions is another big component of this. Stay out of judgment. When you talk about what your kid's spending their money on, that's their choice at this point. They get to decide that. But you can talk about the behavior, you can talk about modifications they can make, and you can invite them to have conversations with you. And money conversations should be a regular part of family life when your kid's a teenager. It should be normal. The more you can normalize conversations about money, the better off your kids are going to be. So, Joey, I'm going to ask you one last thing. What's the one thing that you wish that every parent and young adult understood about money? Pick one or pick both. But if you could impart one thing to them, what would that be?
I would say the immense value of, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but the immense value of saving early and how helpful it is for when you get down the line. Um, it's unfortunately schools really don't teach this stuff. And I think to your point, Deb, I think parents have a great opportunity to inform their kids about, and I wish I learned this earlier on. Saving early is not just smart, but also it works to your advantage as well for when you get closer to retirement, even before retirement. It sets you off on a great foundation. So that's what I would say. How about you, Deb? What do you think parents and young adults, what would be the main thing that you would hope they would know about money?
I think I'm going to talk about parents. And I think the most important thing that they can understand is that they are their kid's teacher. This isn't going to come from somewhere else. It's not going to come from a book. Your kids are going to learn best hearing from you and learning from you. And understanding that that's your role and starting to think about it and get into that space is going to help you to teach them and train them more and better. And I think just the more you can have conversations about money, the better. And preparing your kids, laughing about it, crying about it, all those things, it's part of life. And money shouldn't be something that's scary. It comes with responsibility. And as they go along their trajectory, they get more responsibility. You get less control. That's a hard pill to swallow as a parent. But, and the last thing would be, this is more than one, but the last thing would be is don't teach your kids to have their hand out. Don't bail them out every time it's uncomfortable. Let them be uncomfortable. Um, and with that, I don't see any questions in the chat, but I did want to put our our email addresses down here. We'd love to invite everybody to who has any questions to email us. And Joey is joey at 12points.com. And please feel free to ask us questions. And we have available for anyone who's interested, please send us an email. A checklist, a readiness checklist, which is some of the things that we've talked about here and the things that your child needs to learn and um, have available to them before they set off on their own. So let us know if you're interested in that. And thank you very much for coming. We appreciate that. Hold on, I have one thing under here. Okay. Um, so let us know if you have any questions and check out our website, 12points.com. We have resources, we have free webinars and lots of information available to parents and some to children. And if you're interested in learning more about 12 Points Academy because your child's in school and might want to open a chapter, contact Joey at 12points.com for that. Thanks very much for joining us here today. Wait a minute, I do have two questions. Hold on a second. Oh, I have one comment is compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. It sure is. And that chart that you can show your kids, if you want that, again, email us. We'll send you one. It is, it's like a magic thing that everybody needs to know about. So I see that somebody else has given us their email address and we will send the checklist there. And if there are any more questions, let us know. But you've got our email addresses. You can email them to us as well. So thanks very much for joining us today, and we look forward to hearing from you guys. Bye bye.